1 year ago, Barack Obama was sworn in as the 44th president of these United States.
44 Americans have now taken the presidential oath.
But the president's hard left agenda has left the American people looking for real change. On the eve of his first anniversary, Massachusetts voters spoke loud and clear.
Tonight, the independent voice of Massachusetts has spoken.
Now, maybe real change is upon us. And now, the man who gave life to the independent revolt, Lou Dobbs.
Welcome, everybody, and thanks for being with us. Man, oh, man. You know, it's embarrassing. We got people here still dancing in the halls. I mean, there's a lot of, what are those Schlitz cans? I hadn't seen a Schlitz beer in ages. Everywhere. It's amazing. Welcome, everybody. What a night. What a day. On the first anniversary of President Obama's inauguration, the people of Massachusetts decided to send the 41st Republican to the U.S. Senate in order to derail the Supreme Leader's hard left agenda. Now begins the acrimony, the blame game, the finger pointing, the circular firing squads, the rationalization, the excuse peddling. So before we go any further, let me say I want to hear from you. What do you think about Scott Brown's surprise victory in Massachusetts? What does it mean for President Obama, the Democratic Party's hard left? I shouldn't say Democratic Party. The Democratic leadership's attempt at a hard left turn for this country. 877-55-DOBBS, 877-55-DOBBS. I wrote a book in 2006 called War on the Middle Class. And in that book, for the first time, I said that President George W. Bush had made me an independent. He made me an independent, and I invited my fellow Americans at that time to do something basically unheard of. I said, let's send Washington, D.C. a message. Let's say that we will no longer be taken for granted by either of these two political parties, that we will not be taken for fools. And let's resolve that we shall embrace first our founding ideals and values as Americans before there's any discussion of partisanship. And guess what? I mean, that resonated, obviously, with a lot of people. And I'm not saying that book and that call for independence changed the course of history. I'm not suggesting that in any way. But what I'm saying is that it did resonate with enough people to have some influence and continues to this day to be I think, an unexpected direction that most Americans didn't think possible 3-4 years ago. That is, more Americans today identify themselves as independents than either as Democrats or Republicans. Now, that's pretty impressive because that certainly was not the case 5 years ago. It was not the case 3 years ago. It is now. It is a fact of American political life, and I have to say to you, each and every one of you who's taken that step to be unaffiliated, as we must be in New Jersey rather than independent. You have to be an unaffiliated voter. You can be independent of soul, spirit, and mind, and we are, but you have to be unaffiliated. In Massachusetts, you have to be unenrolled, as they put it. Now, that's a quaint Massachusetts term. It means the same thing. I'm independent and damn proud of it. 51% of the voters, the registered voters in Massachusetts, and there are 4.5 million of them, are independents. And they went for Scott Brown by a margin of 73%. 73%. And I've got to give the Secretary of State up there in Massachusetts some considerable credit. With snow falling on the ground early in the morning, he made it, and of course it's a broad range that he offered. But nonetheless, it was a correct range, and a range that at the upper end turned out to be the exact number. He said anywhere between 1.6 and 2.2 million voters would cast their ballots, and he nailed it on the button on the high side. 2.2 million Massachusetts voters went to the polls and elected Scott Brown, the first Republican to be elected to the Senate since 1972, when Senator Edward Brooke won re-election. Well, the fact is this. Independent voters also elected President Barack H. Obama. And last night in Massachusetts, by the way, only 2 days distant from his last appearance, his most recent appearance in Massachusetts, they showed just how quickly they have, become disillusioned with the president's hard left agenda. And on his 1-year anniversary, we here on the Lou Dobbs Show are going to discuss, analyze precisely that issue. As the Senator-elect Scott Brown pulled off the upset in large measure because he won those independent voters by a 73-25% margin. 73% to 25%. The senator-elect also picked up 23% of the vote from Democrats. Massachusetts is now the third consecutive state in the past 3 months where the president had won the state in 2008 and where independent voters swung from him to vote decisively for the Republican candidate.